All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome back to another explainer. If you're managing, billing, or operating a facility that uses cellular and tissue-based products, CTPs, right? You already know the ground is always moving under our feet. But guys, the 2026 Medicare reimbursement changes, that's not just a little shift. We're talking about a massive structural overhaul, literally a whole new ballgame. Today, we are going to dive straight into these new rules. We're looking at a completely redesigned reimbursement strategy that carries a huge financial impact for providers and outpatient hospitals. So definitely grab your notes, because understanding these new rules inside and out is absolutely going to be the difference between a paid claim and a really costly denial.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to hit the $10 billion shift first, because yeah, it's that big. Then we'll quickly run through the new pathways and codes, how to navigate WISR and LCDs, those strict new documentation rules, and finally wrap up with Medicare's total zero-tolerance policy on waste. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The $10 billion shift. Let's look at why this is happening.
I mean, seriously, you might be wondering, why is Medicare suddenly flipping the table on CTT reimbursement? Well, look at the sheer scale of the problem here. Back in 2019, Medicare Part B was spending about $252 million on skin substitutes. Fast forward to 2024, that number completely exploded to over $10 billion. $10 billion. That is an absolute astronomical spike in just 5 years. So obviously, CMS had to act. They targeted an estimated $9.4 million in savings, and to pull that off, they essentially had to blow up the old payment paradigm.
And here is the result: $127.14. Yeah, that is the jarring new flat rate per square centimeter for CTPs that don't meet those strict biological requirements under Section 351 of the Public Health Service Act. For a lot of you out there, providers, outpatient hospitals, this represents an immediate, incredibly severe financial haircut. It's a tough pill to swallow.
To really put this into perspective, let's compare the good old days to our new reality. Under the old paradigm, skin substitutes were treated as Part B drugs and biologicals, right? So they were reimbursed using the highly lucrative average sales price, ASP, plus 6%. But flash forward to the new 2026 paradigm, unlicensed CTPs are now just classified as incident to supplies. They've been completely unbundled from outpatient procedures and just shoved straight into the practice expense of the graft application itself. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're in a hospital outpatient facility, a patient's home, or a clinician's office. This new bundled reality applies across the board.
All right, moving on to Section 2, Pathways and Codes. This is a massive operational shift.
So with the financial shock out of the way, we got to talk operations. Because understanding the difference between these FDA regulatory pathways is basically your golden ticket to actually getting paid. Seriously, you might want to grab a screenshot of this matrix. Payment categories are now driven 100% by these 3 FDA pathways, and they don't care at all about brand names or average sales price anymore. At the top, we've got APC 6000. That's for your PMA or pre-market approval products. You know, the high-risk medical devices that need a ton of clinical evidence. Right below that, APC 6001, which covers the FDA-cleared 510K products. And finally, APC 6002. This is for your 361 HCTS, Ps, the human cells, tissues, and cellular and tissue-based products. These are the ones that can skip clinical trials, but have to be FDA registered and manufactured under good tissue practices. You absolutely have to know exactly which pathway your product falls under, and use the corresponding unlisted HCPCS codes you see right here.
But wait, the categorization doesn't stop there. The January 2026 update to the Outpatient Code Editor, the OCE, brings in these super-critical status indicators. Status S1? That is strictly for your sheet form skin substitute products. Those get paid separately. On the flip side, non-sheet form products get slapped with the status N, which means their cost is completely swallowed up into the APC rates. The big takeaway here, if you try to submit an application procedure without an S1 designated product attached to it, the OCE is going to bounce it right back and reject it. You've got to match the product form to the correct indicator, no exceptions.
And along with those status indicators, we have some very specific procedural coding steps. Step 1. Just completely stop using HCPCS codes C5271 through C5278. We used them for low-cost procedures before, but as of 2026, they are entirely deleted. Step 2, you've got to switch to the new CPT codes 152071 through 152078 for all CTP applications. Actually, a quick reminder on this. These codes are exclusively for graft applications. Do not, under any circumstances, try to report them for non-graft wound dressings or for biologic implants used for soft tissue reinforcement. It will not work.
Okay, Section 3, Navigating WISR and LCDs. Let's talk about these compliance models. Let's see how all this feeds into the new, hyper-scrutinized compliance models. This timeline tracks the rollout of the wasteful and inappropriate service reduction model, which thankfully they just call the WISER model. It's introduced January 5th, 2026. Then prior authorization and prepayment medical reviews start hitting dates of service on January 15th, and this whole model runs all the way through 2031. Now, this applies specifically to beneficiaries under original Medicare in places of service 11, so the office, 12, the home, and 24, ambulatory surgical centers. If you drop a claim in these settings without prior authorization, boom, you trigger a prepayment review. Also, just a heads up, the rollout across the different Medicare administrative contractors, the MACs, is a bit up in the air right now, so keep a really close eye on whether your specific state's MAC has joined the WISER party yet.
And believe me, when they do review those claims, they are going to be splitting hairs over clinical definitions. Right now, treating lower extremity chronic, non-healing wounds is basically ground zero for regulatory monitoring. Under the incredibly strict L35041, a chronic, non-healing wound isn't just any wound. It's specifically defined as one that fails to show any evidence of healing, meaning no contraction or advancement of epithelial margins after 4 full weeks of optimization and standard therapy. Plus, coverage totally hinges on the patient being actively treated by a licensed physician for the underlying systemic disease that caused the wound in the first place, like venous insufficiency or diabetes. So you can't just treat the wound. You absolutely have to be managing the root cause.
Which brings us to Section 4, Strict New Documentation Rules. All right, we are officially in the survival phase of this explainer. Listen to me. Missing even one tiny piece of this documentation is a one-way ticket to a denied claim. So let's run through this crucial checklist you need to hit for prior approval. First up, size. The wound deficit absolutely has to be documented as greater than or equal to 1.0 square centimeter. And you need to track its progression through all the treatments. Second, depth. It's approved for partial or full thickness ulcers, but here's the catch. It cannot involve tendon, muscle, joint capsules, or exposed bone unless your specific product label explicitly approves it. Third is wound quality. The wound bed has to be documented as clean, with a granular base, and literally zero necrotic debris or exudate. And finally, the ankle brachial index, ABI. You have to prove there's enough circulation to actually support new tissue growth. We're talking an ABI of no less than 0.60 or a toe pressure greater than 30 millimeters of mercury. Oh, and on top of all that, you have to thoroughly document exactly why the wound had a failed response to those initial 4 weeks of baseline treatments.
Section 5. Zero tolerance for waste. Get ready for some massive cost reductions here.
Let's pivot to the final operational rule, and it's a big one. Medicare looked at how we all used to bill for discarded products and just completely shut the door on it. Check out this direct quote from the CMS final rule. Non-BLA skin substitutes are no longer payable under Medicare Part B as a drug or biological as of January 1, 2026, and only the administered portion is payable. So what does that actually mean for us? It means Medicare is not paying a single cent for discarded skin substitute products anymore. Period. And honestly, it doesn't even matter if you append the JW or JZ modifiers to try and get around it. Those days are officially history. So, let's talk practical application, because this is where it hurts. Let's say you open up a 6x6 centimeter sheet of a 361 HCT/P product. That's 36 square centimeters total, right? But the patient's wound? It only needs a 5x5 centimeter portion. That's 25 square centimeters. Under these new rules, you may only bill for the 25 square centimeters you actually put on the patient. You cannot bill for the 36 square centimeters you opened. If you waste product, your facility eats the entire financial cost of that waste. End of story. It really is that simple, and they are enforcing it strictly.
Which brings us to our final thought today. The OIG, the Office of the Inspector General, is aggressively, and I mean aggressively, monitoring the use of skin substitutes. They are out there hunting for fraud, waste, and abuse. If your facility is used to getting reimbursed thousands of dollars for all the product you opened in the past, you need to radically adjust your fiscal projections right now. Tight compliance monitoring, immediate updates to your charge description master, rigorous post-payment reviews. These aren't just recommendations anymore. They are vital survival tactics. So I'll leave you with this question to discuss with your teams today. As these 2026 reforms take hold, is your practice's compliance monitoring truly ready for the OIG? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, guys. Good luck navigating these new regulations.